Hi, this is Steve, and today we're here with Ryan Ashby, who is one of our executive ops directors, and we're going to talk about sales mastery number 4. Ryan and I are just going to have a little conversation about trust, dependability, and intimacy in selling. Ryan, a lot of times when we're out with clients, customers, or potential customers, we have opportunities to get to know them better, to build a relationship, and to develop trust. When they trust us, they then give us an opportunity to bid on a job or to look at a project. And then, of course, they trust us to build it. And after we build it, the expectation is that we get more business as a result. But let's talk a little bit about trust. So you have lots of relations with different types of clients, different types of customers. And sometimes some of those relationships can get sideways, or there's vulnerability when you talk about real issues. And so maybe you could sum up how you view trust in our relationships every day with the people we do work with. It could be trust with subcontractors, suppliers, clients, potential clients. You want to talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, definitely, Steve. Probably the biggest thing when I think of trust is you need to know what the expectation is, but then be willing to shoot straight with either your client, the subcontractor, whoever you're working with. It's easy to try to make something up, to tell a little white lie, try to let them hear what they want to hear, but sometimes the reality is different. And I think they appreciate that more when you're willing to let them know what the situation is, but that you have a plan to try to fix that situation and to treat them like people. You know, it's real easy as a general contractor to get angry with our subcontractors and start saying things that you don't mean, instead of saying, hey, these people, they have needs and wants, and it's important for you to understand those needs and wants and work with them on it.
Great. What you're saying is early on in a relationship, be honest right up front. Be truthful about the good news and the bad news, and being willing to then accept and understand what their response is, and then together work out a solution. But can you think of an occasion when you have a relationship with somebody and you had to be the bearer of bad news, and how they took it, and then how you work together to go forward?
Yeah. I've just had an experience just this week with this one project I'm working on right now is the Providence Hall Elementary School expansion. Right now, how we're having a lot of supply chain issues. One of those particular things is our HVAC units, our rooftop units. And on this particular project, we have 12 units. School opens in a week and a half, and the units have been on order since January. And they were supposed to ship on June 1st. Didn't happen. Then it was mid-June. Didn't happen. Finally, I heard they were supposed to ship by July 31st and 1st. Didn't happen, and I found out about this last Wednesday. You know, we've been communicating this with the owner regularly on our OACs, and we kept on having a plan of how we were going to make it happen with their transit time and then get them craned up on the roof. Well, last Wednesday when I found out this news, we immediately got on a call with the owner, and I said, well, let's see if we can get with our supplier and with Carrier and see what solution we come up with. So we set up a conference call. We had the school involved. Administrator was on the call, and we had 2 calls that day with Carrier and the supplier. And by the end of the day, they were able to find 8 of the 12 units, different places where they're stealing from different jobs, things to make it happen so the school can get in and be operational. So that was on Wednesday. They had them shipped, and they just craned them up on the roof this morning. So here they were upset, you know, obviously not blaming necessarily Stout for the situation, right, but we were transparent with it, and they were willing to work with us on it. And that's something now that develops a little more trust, because they're like, okay, now Stout is willing to do whatever they can to try to help us.
That's a great story with a happy ending. Do you think now you're stronger together as a relationship because you had a problem, but you communicated it early, then you worked on it continually, and then you solved it at the end? Do you think they are now more trusting of you than they were, even though there was a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. The problem is there's more to that story. There's other things that are going on, right, that, you know, of right, course, they get upset about, but that's why each problem you have, you need to take that approach to it and
Tackle it early.
You tackle it as early as you can and be transparent,
Right.
and don't make up excuses. Own it.
Right. I love that. You have to own it. And it proves to them that you're dependable, that you're working for them. And I think that for every client, they need to know they can count on Stout. A lot of times at the end of jobs, we'll ask the owner of the job, the client, how did Stout do? Give us a checklist of how he did. And then they'll usually tell us where we can improve, and we'll right our wrongs, if you will, and we'll continue to try to better ourselves. But a lot of times we forget to ask them what we're doing right. What good things did we do on this job? Tell us what you liked about us. That can open us up to more conversation. Have you had that experience before?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the post-mortem experience you have with a client. And personally, I want to know both.
Right.
Because how am I going to know what to do better when I don't know what we've done wrong? Some things are pretty obvious. We've been in this business a long time. We know when we're missing the mark on things. But I think it is very important to get feedback from your clients and from your subcontractors.
Right.
How are we doing as a team? Which includes the owner, the architect, the subcontractors, and our team here at Stout. That's something I asked some of my clients. And, one was, well, your price is right and you perform. That was basically their response.
Works.
But then their feedback was, you've slipped some things on the schedule that we don't feel like there's enough push happening. And so you like to have both kinds of feedback.
Thanks for sharing that. I know that one of our division managers asked one of our clients, Woodbury, what they thought about how we had done on the Fat Cats. And Jeff from Woodbury came back with a 3-page synopsis of all the great things we had done. And I think you can almost use that as a template to say, these are the things we need to continue to do. This is the good news of what we're doing. Because a lot of times we only hear the bad news. But I think it's important for us to know what we're doing right, because I think when we get positive feedback from a client, it helps us with our trust with them as well. Let's talk about the last part of this, which is intimacy. Intimacy is a vital element to communication. I like to think of our relationship with our clients as really true relationships, that these are people we value and they value us. They're our friends. Some are closer friends than others, but they're friends that can come to us when there's a problem. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think when you think of the word intimacy, sometimes other things come to your mind.
Right.
I won't put words in your mouth here, Steve, but, I think about my relationship with my wife. One thing she always says is, I want to be intimate with you. Now, she's not talking about the one type of intimacy. She's talking about she wants me to open up. She wants me to open the doors of my heart or my mind, the things that I'm concerned about, and share that with her, because that's how we'll connect. And that comes through time with trust.
You have to have trust to have intimacy,
You have to have trust to have intimacy, for sure. And the more you do that, the more you show a little bit of your vulnerability. You show who you really are. The more people are willing to trust you. They're like, hey, I know Steve because I've spent time with Steve. And Steve's opened up to me about, where he grew up, and, we've made that connection, and, things about his family. That's how you become more intimate with someone. It's not just the surface of, hey, yeah, we're doing business, we shake hands and we go our separate ways. You get to know who they are and really what those wants and needs are.
That's a good way to put it. And people will open up to you if they feel trust. Just a real simple example, maybe we'll close with this. Today we had a lunch at Gardner, and it went really well. And as I looked around the room, you were having conversations. James was having conversations. Nate, Ty, Brian, myself, we were all having conversations with different people. And I connected with a guy, Howard, Lee, who was working there, I know Lee through our connection in Bountiful and Bountiful Baseball. Lee said to Howard, hey, Howard, Steve's a Baltimore Orioles fan. And Howard's like, what? There's not many of us, especially out here in the West. So for 20 minutes, Howard and I talked about Baltimore Oriole baseball because they're having a great season. And I felt we connected on that level. We can talk about things outside of work. And I think when you do that, that's where some intimacy happens, is that you can talk about real things. And sometimes you form friendships, and sometimes you can say, I'm having a bad day. And you can be real with people. And I think that's important, is that we are real with people. We're real about news, good and bad. We're real about our emotions, maybe. I think we're protective of how we really feel about them if we're disappointed, and that's probably good. But at the same time, too, that if there is an issue they have about something, maybe we can solve it if we have that trust and the intimacy and things like that. Well, I think we've exchanged a lot of great ideas. Is there anything you want to close with?
No, Steve, thanks for being a man of trust and intimacy.
Well, thank you. I think that wraps it up.
Thanks.